An Amish woman, 91 years old, fell off a step stool in her kitchen while reaching for a jar on the top shelf. Her hip hit the edge of the counter. Her shoulder hit the floor. She lay there for a moment, got up, brushed her apron, and finished canning the tomatoes. No break, no crack, nothing. Her neighbor, not Amish, 15 years younger, fell getting out of the bathtub, snapped her wrist, 6 weeks in a cast, the same kind of fall, two completely different results. Why? Not luck, not genetics. The Amish woman had been eating and drinking and chewing and swallowing things that the modern world stopped consuming decades ago. Things her mother gave her. Things her grandmother gave her mother. Things so strange, so unfamiliar to the modern kitchen, that most people would look at them and say, "You eat that?" Yes, they eat that. And their bones tell the story. Number 5 on this list uses something most people throw in the trash every morning without thinking. Number 3 is so unusual that the first time I heard about it, I did not believe it. And number 1 burns going down. 10 remedies, all forgotten, all still practiced in Amish kitchens right now. Number 10, whole sardines from the pantry. Not filleted, not boneless. Whole, with the spine, with the ribs, with every tiny bone still inside. The Amish pantry, and I need to describe this because most people have never seen one, is a room, not a shelf. A room. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with mason jars and canned goods and dry storage that could feed a family for 6 months without a single trip to any store. And somewhere on those shelves, always sardines, canned in oil or water. Whole. You open the tin. You eat them. All of them. You do not pick the bones out. You do not separate anything. The bones are soft. Canning softens them until they crumble between your teeth like nothing. Most people do not even notice they are eating bones. But they are. Every tiny rib, every vertebra. Here's the thing. A tin of sardines costs less than $2. The Amish eat them on bread, on crackers, straight from the tin with a fork. No preparation, no cooking. No standing at a stove. 2 minutes, and done. The rest of the world decided sardines were unpleasant, smelly, low class, and switched to boneless, skinless, flavorless fillets that cost 3 times as much and deliver a fraction of what the whole fish provides. Make of that what you will. Number 9. Sauerkraut brine. Not the sauerkraut. The juice. The liquid. The salty, sour, cloudy brine that sits at the bottom of the crock after the cabbage has been eaten. The stuff that 99% of people pour down the drain without a second thought. The Amish drink it. A small glass. Morning. That is the routine in households that make their own sauerkraut, which in Amish communities is all of them. Every house has a crock. Every crock has brine. And every grandmother in those households knows, not believes knows, that the brine is worth more than the kraut itself. Why? I asked an Amish woman. She looked at me like I had asked why the sky was blue. Because it has everything the cabbage gave up. That was her answer. Not scientific, not detailed. Just everything the cabbage gave up. As if the cabbage had made a sacrifice and the brine was the evidence. The modern world spent 20 years trying to bottle what sauerkraut brine already is. They gave it fancy names, put it in capsules, charged $30. The Amish have been drinking it for free, from a crock their great-grandmother made, and nobody told them they needed a label to validate it. Number 8. Blackstrap molasses in warm milk. Before bed, every night. A cup of warm milk, from their own cows, unpasteurized, still warm from the evening milking, with a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses stirred in until the white milk turned the color of light chocolate. Blackstrap molasses is, and I need to pause here because this matters, not regular molasses. Not the golden kind you put in cookies. Blackstrap is the third extraction, the final press, the darkest, bitterest, densest remainder of the sugar-making process. It is what is left when every drop of sweetness has been taken out. The bottom, the residue, the part the sugar industry considers waste. The Amish do not consider it waste. The women who made this nightly drink, warm milk, 1 tablespoon of blackstrap, stirred slow, gave it to every member of the household. Children, adults, elders, especially the elders. Especially the women past a certain age who the modern world would have sent to a specialist. The Amish sent them to the kitchen with a cup and a spoon. Does this sound too simple? It is simple. That is not an argument against it. That is the whole point. Number 7. Dandelion root tea. Everyone knows dandelion leaves, the greens, the salad. That is not what this is. This is the root, pulled from the ground in the fall, not spring, fall, when the plant has drawn everything back down into itself for winter storage. Washed, chopped, roasted slowly in the oven until dark and fragrant, then ground and brewed like coffee. The taste is, actually, I want to be honest, an acquired thing. Earthy, bitter, deep, like coffee crossed with dirt in a way that is somehow not unpleasant, but definitely not what your mouth expects the first time. By the third cup, you stop noticing. By the 10th, you start craving it. Amish women, particularly the older ones, drank this in the fall and winter as a daily tea. They called it their root tea without specifying which root, because to them the dandelion was not a weed. It was a plant, a useful plant, a plant that grew without asking, without planting, without costing a single cent. And the root, the part underground, the part nobody sees, was the part they valued most. The modern world poisons dandelions, sprays them, digs them out, curses them for ruining the lawn. And the root, the part the Amish roast and brew and drink every winter, rots in the ground, unused, unwanted. Like a lot of things on this list, if you are still here, subscribe, because the next 6 remedies are the ones that will change the way you look at your kitchen trash. Number 5 is something you throw away every single morning. Number 3 made me stop and rethink everything I thought I knew about bones. And number 1 is not for the faint-hearted. Stay. Number 6, nettle leaf tea. You pick them with gloves. That is the first rule. Because fresh nettle, and I mean fresh, straight from the ground where it grows in shady, damp patches at the edge of the field, will sting you. Not a gentle sting. A sting that burns and itches and raises welts and makes you seriously reconsider your life choices for about 20 minutes. But here's the contradiction. The plant that stings you raw is the same plant that, once the boiling water takes the sting away, makes one of the most valued teas in Amish kitchen tradition, specifically for the frame, for the structure, for keeping the body upright and solid and unbreakable in the way that Amish elders seem to be unbreakable. Decade after decade, long past the age when most people start to crumble, a handful of dried nettle leaves, hot water, steep 10 minutes, strain, drink. The women who made this called it the standing tea. Not because you drink it standing up, because it keeps you standing. Period. Is that a folk explanation? Yes. Does it satisfy a modern audience that wants mechanisms and studies and peer-reviewed evidence? No. Does it need to? The women who drank it are still on their feet at 85. The women who did not are, well, you tell me. Here's what most people get wrong about the Amish and their bones. People think it is the labor, the physical work, the walking, the lifting, the bending. They think that is why Amish elders do not crumble. And yes, the work matters. Nobody is arguing that. But here's what they miss. The work is only half the equation. You can work hard all day and still fall apart if the structure is not being fed. And that is what the modern world forgot. That the structure needs to be fed, not with a pill, not with a powder and a shake, with food, real food. Dense, strange, old food that the body recognizes because it has been receiving it for 200 years without interruption. The Amish did not stop feeding their bones when the food industry told them to switch to skim milk and margarine and white flour. They kept the whole milk. They kept the lard. They kept the molasses. They kept the bones in the broth and the shells on the eggs and the sardines in the tin. They kept everything the modern world removed, and their bones kept them. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what did your grandmother feed your family that nobody eats anymore? I want those stories, because they are the same stories. Different kitchens, different faces, same wisdom. Disappearing at the same speed. Number 5, eggshell powder in morning coffee. This is the one that stops people. The one that makes them lean back and say, no way. Eggshells. Dried on the windowsill, crushed into a fine powder with a mortar and pestle, or the back of a spoon, or the bottom of a mason jar, whatever was heavy and nearby. Then a pinch, not a spoonful, a pinch, stirred into the morning coffee. That is it. That is the whole remedy. The coffee dissolved the powder. The grit disappeared. The taste did not change, or if it did, it was so slight that nobody mentioned it. And every morning with every cup, a small amount of what the eggshell had to offer went down with the coffee and into the body that needed it. The Amish did not throw eggshells away. They did not throw anything away. But the eggshells specifically were saved, dried, and crushed because the women who ran those kitchens understood something that the modern world has only recently started to rediscover. That the shell of the egg is not garbage. It is not waste. It is the hardest, most concentrated part of the egg, the part that protected the life inside it, and it has something to give if you bother to ask. A dozen eggs a week, 12 shells, dried, crushed, pinched into coffee over 7 mornings. That was the rhythm. The cost was 0. The effort was almost 0. And the women who did this, every morning, every year for their entire adult lives, stood straight, well into their 80s, well into their 90s, straight, unbroken. Coincidence? Maybe. But it was a very consistent coincidence. Number 4, oxtail jelly eaten cold. Not broth, not soup. Jelly. Here's how it works. You make oxtail broth the way the Amish have always made it. Oxtail simmered for 6 to 8 hours with water and a splash of vinegar until the meat falls off and the cartilage dissolves, and the kitchen smells like something from another century. Then you strain it, pour it into a shallow dish, and put it in the icebox. By morning, it is not liquid. It is solid. A trembling amber-colored jelly that you can cut with a knife. Dense, firm, almost rubbery to the touch. You slice it into squares, you put it on a plate, and you eat it, cold, with bread, like food, because it is food. The Amish did not just drink their broth, they ate it, in its concentrated, solidified form. The jelly was the proof, the physical, visible evidence, that the broth had extracted everything the bones had to give. If it set into jelly, it was done. If it stayed liquid, it was not ready. The jelly test. Simple. Binary, no thermometer, no timer, no guesswork. Most people today would look at a plate of cold bone jelly and refuse it. The Amish put it on the breakfast table next to the eggs and the bread and the coffee with the eggshell powder. One meal. 4 of the items on this list. All at once, every morning, for 200 years. Think about that for a second. Then think about what is on your breakfast table. Number 3. Vinegar-soaked chicken bones. This is the one I mentioned at the beginning. The one I did not believe the first time I heard it. After a chicken dinner, and then when the bones were clean and the meat was gone and most kitchens would toss the carcass in the trash, Amish women collected the bones. All of them. Leg bones, thigh bones, wing bones, the spine, everything. And they put them in a jar, and they covered them with apple cider vinegar. And they waited 3 days, sometimes 4. What happens, and you can try this yourself tonight, is that the vinegar breaks the bones down. Slowly. The hard, rigid, snap when you bend them bones turn soft. Flexible. You can bend a chicken leg bone in half without it breaking. You can chew it, you can eat it, and they did. The women who did this did not explain the chemistry, obviously. They said the vinegar pulled everything out of the bone and put it in a form the body could use. Their words, not mine. I am just reporting what they said, and what they did, which was eat chicken bones, weekly, for generations. Is this strange? Absolutely. Is it uncomfortable to think about? Yes, but the women who ate softened chicken bones with their breakfast had a way of being, how do I say this, structurally intact at ages that defy what the modern world considers normal. They did not bend. They did not shrink. They did not snap. The bones in the jar were soft. The bones in their bodies were not. Connect that however you want. Number 2. Beef knuckle cartilage. Chewed directly. After the broth was made, after the beef knuckle bones had simmered for 12, 15, sometimes 20 hours, the bones came out of the pot. The broth went into jars, and the bones, stripped of marrow, softened by hours of heat, still had something left, the cartilage, the thick, rubbery, translucent layer that covered the ends of the knuckle where bone met bone, where joint met joint. Most people threw this away, or gave it to the dog. The Amish women did not throw it away, and they did not give it to the dog. They pulled the cartilage off the bone with their fingers, still warm, slippery, dense, and they chewed it, slowly, like gum, not swallowing it whole and chewing it, for minutes, breaking it down in the mouth until it was soft enough to swallow. This is not a comfortable image, I know that. It is not Instagram-worthy. It is not something you would see on a cooking show or read about in a magazine. It is a woman in a plain dress standing at a wood-burning stove, pulling cartilage off a bone and chewing it the way her mother did and her grandmother did, and the 5 generations before that. They said this was the most concentrated form of what the body needed to stay solid. Not the broth. The broth was good. Not the marrow. The marrow was rich. But the cartilage itself, the actual joint material of the animal, eaten directly, without dilution, without processing, without turning it into a powder or a capsule or a flavored drink. There is something raw about this, something that sits at the edge of what the modern world finds acceptable. But the modern world's version of acceptability includes eating food manufactured in a factory from ingredients you cannot pronounce. So maybe the definition needs updating. Hit the like button. If you have made it to number 2, through the eggshell powder and the bone jelly and the vinegar-softened chicken bones and the chewed cartilage, you are not a casual viewer. You are someone who wants to know the truth about what kept people standing. Subscribe. Stay for number 1. It is the last one, and it is the strongest. Here's something I want to say before we get to the end. The modern world decided that bones were a problem to solve with a pill. One pill, once a day. That was the answer. Clean, simple, modern. The Amish decided that bones were a structure to feed, with food, every day, from every part of the animal and every corner of the kitchen. Eggshells, sardine bones, oxtail jelly, beef cartilage, chicken bones softened in vinegar, sauerkraut brine, nettle tea, molasses, all of it, every day. From the kitchen, not the pharmacy. Two approaches, two very different outcomes. And the people who chose the pill are the ones asking why nothing works. While the people who chose the kitchen are still on their feet. Number 1. Horseradish and vinegar tonic. You will not like this one. Fair warning. Fresh horseradish root. The real thing. The knobby, ugly root that grows in the back of the garden where nobody pays attention. Peeled, grated. The moment the root hits the grater, the fumes hit your eyes, your nose, the back of your throat. If you have never grated fresh horseradish, imagine slicing an onion, but 10 times worse. Tears. Burning. The air in the kitchen becomes almost hostile. The grated horseradish goes into a mason jar, covered with raw apple cider vinegar. The homemade kind with the mother, the cloudy kind. Sealed. 2 weeks minimum on the counter. Some families go 3. After the steeping, you strain it. What comes out is an amber liquid that smells like fire. And vinegar had a fight and nobody won. A tablespoon. Every morning. Straight. No water, no honey, no chaser. It burns going down. Not gently, not subtly. It burns the way a hot coal burns. Sharp, immediate, and then spreading. Your sinuses open. Your eyes water. Your chest flushes warm. And your entire body, for about 30 seconds, feels like someone kicked the furnace on from the inside. The Amish women who made this called it the bone warmer. Not bone broth, not bone soup, the bone warmer. As if the bones themselves were cold and needed waking up. As if the horseradish was the alarm clock and the vinegar was the cold water thrown in the face. Was it pleasant? No. Was it something anyone looked forward to? No. Did the women who took it every morning, a tablespoon, straight, no argument, have frames that held up decade after decade while the rest of the world was crumbling? Yes, they did. And they still do. This is the last remedy on the list. The strongest. The most aggressive. The one that most people will hear about and say, I could never do that. And maybe they are right. Maybe they could not. But the women who did, the women who peeled and grated and steeped and strained and swallowed and winced and came back the next morning and did it again, those women were not doing it because it was easy. They were doing it because they saw what happened to the people who did not. And they were not willing to become that. 10 remedies. None of them new. None of them complicated. None of them expensive. Sardines from a tin. Brine from a crock. Molasses and milk. Shells from an egg. Roots from the yard. Cartilage from a bone. Chicken bones and vinegar. Jelly from a tail. Nettles from the field. And horseradish that burns like it means it. All of them forgotten by the modern kitchen. All of them still practiced in Amish homes. All of them keeping people on their feet, upright, unbroken, unbent, at ages that most of us have been taught to fear. And that word, fear, is worth stopping on, because that is what happened. Somewhere along the way, the modern world decided that aging was something to be afraid of, that getting older meant getting fragile. That past a certain number, the body starts to betray you, and there is nothing you can do except manage the decline. The Amish do not think that way. They do not even understand that way of thinking. You ask an Amish woman in her 80s if she is afraid of falling, and she looks at you like you asked if she is afraid of breakfast. It does not compute, because her frame was fed. Every day, every meal, every morning cup of coffee with a pinch of eggshell powder, for her entire life. She was not managing decline, she was preventing it. Quietly, from the kitchen, without a single conversation about it, without a single moment of fear. That is the difference. Not the remedies themselves, and although the remedies matter, the difference is the mindset. The Amish do not wait for something to go wrong and then react. They feed the structure before it asks, every day. The same way they feed the stove wood before the fire dies. The same way they feed the soil before the crop needs it. Prevention that does not call itself prevention because it is just life. It is just how you live. We stopped living that way. We stopped feeding the structure and started waiting for the crack. And then, when the crack came, we reached for the bottle instead of the kitchen. And the bottle costs more and does less and requires a refill and comes with a list of things it might do to you while it is supposedly helping you. And the kitchen, the eggshell, the sardine, the molasses, the brine, sits there, doing nothing, because nobody asked it to. Here is what bothers me. And I want to be direct because I think you can handle it. The information on this list is not hidden. It is not classified. It is not behind a paywall or locked in a vault. It is sitting in plain sight, in Amish kitchens that anyone can visit, in traditions that anyone can learn, in jars and crocks and tins that anyone can buy for less than the cost of 1 month of the modern alternative. The information is there. It has always been there. What is missing is the willingness to look at it, to accept that the answer might be ugly, that it might involve chewing cartilage off a bone, or drinking cloudy brine from a crock, or swallowing horseradish tonic that makes your eyes water and your chest flush and your whole body wonder what just happened. The modern world wants the answer to be clean, packaged, pleasant, and these remedies are none of those things, but they work. Or at least, and I will say it this way because I respect what I do not fully understand. The people who use them are still standing, straight, at 90, and the people who do not are not. That is not a study. That is not a lab report. That is a 200-year observation made by every pair of eyes that has ever looked at an Amish community and wondered, how? Now you know how. Or at least, you know what they do. Whether you do it is up to you. You do not need to do all 10. Pick one. The eggshell powder if you want something invisible. A pinch in your coffee, nobody has to know. The sardines if you want something easy, open a tin, eat the whole thing, 2 minutes. The molasses milk if you want something before bed. Warm, dark, slow, and the last thing you taste before sleep. Just one. This week. Not next week. This week. Because next week is what people say when they mean never. And if you are ready for the hard one, the horseradish tonic, the one that makes your kitchen smell like war and your body feel like someone turned the power back on, make it. Peel the root. Grate it. Put it in the jar. Pour the vinegar. Seal it. And wait. 2 weeks. 14 mornings of looking at that jar on the counter and knowing that what is inside is getting stronger while you wait. Then open it. Strain it. Pour a tablespoon. Hold it for a second. And drink it. It will burn. Your eyes will water. Your chest will flush. And for about 30 seconds, you will feel more awake, more present, more alive, more aware of your own body than you have felt in years. That is not magic. That is horseradish and vinegar and 2 weeks of patience and 200 years of women who knew that the strongest things in the kitchen are never the gentle ones. Subscribe. Share this with someone whose body has been telling them something they have been ignoring every morning, every staircase, every time they stand up too fast and something reminds them that the frame is asking for help. Because that is what it is. Not a problem. A request. The body is asking to be fed the way it used to be fed. Before the pills. Before the powders. Before the modern world decided that the kitchen was not enough. The kitchen was always enough. It still is. The only thing that changed is that we stopped believing it. The Amish never stopped. And their bones, quiet, strong, unbroken, are the proof that nobody can argue with and nobody can sell you and nobody can take away. Make something tonight. Save the eggshells from tomorrow's breakfast. Buy a tin of sardines, heat the milk, stir in the molasses, sit down, and start. That is all it takes. Starting.